Hello everyone and welcome back to the next episode of Art Side of Life, where I chat with inspiring artists 5 days a week. My name is Eva and my guest today is Hieu Nguyen, better known as Kelogsloops. You will learn about Hieu's journey as a professional artist and how he approaches learning.
I never actually took classes. A lot of what I learned was through observation. So basically, everything I know is just through observing the real world, I guess. Anatomy, facial structures, features. It was all just looking at people.
Hieu is a digital and watercolor artist from Melbourne, Australia, and now studying in San Diego, California. He has been drawing since age 5 and painting with watercolors since 2013. In the recent years, he has made a name for himself, particularly in the digital art world, and has developed large community on social media like DeviantArt, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. He has a stunning Instagram following of over 670,000 followers and on YouTube 300,000 fans. He works as a designer for Beautiful Bizarre magazine too, a magazine about art and culture. In September 2016, he exhibited his work in Haven Gallery in New York on topic of heart's blood. He publishes popular speed painting videos on YouTube and sells his watercolor paintings and digital art prints through his website and his Society 6 shop. So please welcome Hieu, aka Kelogsloops. And let's get to the interview. So welcome everyone to the next episode of Art Side of Life, and I'm super happy to have you here. Hi!
Hi!
So how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. And let's just start right away because you are super busy, and maybe you can share some of your background, how you got to art, and which are maybe like the moments where you decided, okay, I want to take this professionally.
So I guess my art story began way back when I was a kid. So I've always been drawing. So I think like 5 years old is when I first started drawing. It was actually my now sister-in-law who introduced me into art. So I remember as a kid, she taught me one of those this how to draw anime manga style approaches.
Yeah.
And she taught me how to draw Sailor Moon with like the whole circle, triangle thing. And I remember when she taught me, like seeing that face come to life, like there was something about it that just like pulled me into it, and I loved it. So then after that, I became addicted. I drew every day. I was always drawing. I was always that kid in class who drew, always drawing, never doing anything, never paying attention in class, always drawing. So I was always that kid. But the thing is, I never thought much about it. Like I knew I loved art. Art was everything to me. I was always doing it, but I never thought about having it as a career. For me, because I went to in high school as I grew up, I started to realize I had a brain, and
You can use it other ways as well.
Yeah, I can actually use it. I have a brain. I can study. I studied well, and I was getting really good grades. And then I ended up trying for a very academic school, and I was lucky enough to get in there. But the bad thing about it was that I was thrown into this environment where art wasn't very encouraged. It was everyone wanted to do science or medicine or law, and if you did art, it kind of felt like everyone was laughing at you. So it basically, it was kind of like a joke that if you were doing art or studying anything like that, you were going nowhere in your life. And that's kind of a harsh way to say it, but that's kind of what the environments being in there felt like.
Yeah.
So the more I was there, the more I grew up. And by the time I was like 18 and we had to make a decision on what school we wanted to go to, there was no chance I was going to do art. Like in the back of my head, I just knew I would not do art because I just thought it was stupid. So it was a big change. It was a gradual progression from loving art and wanting to do it all the time to realizing that no, I cannot make a career out of this. It's impossible. Like even my career counselor advised me not to do art.
I had the same.
Sad. It hurts.
It's like they were like, "Oh, you cannot live from it. Like choose something normal." And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah. That's pretty much what she said, because I remember like I had options and I did want to consider art. So I spoke about doing animation or fine art or graphic design. And then as well as that, I wanted to do physiotherapy, something in the health field, like physiotherapy or what else was there? Like occupational therapy, that kind of field, the allied health field. And talking to that crew counselor, she just switched everything around and put like medicine first, and it it just it doesn't help when you're surrounded by people who keep telling you art isn't a way to go. And so by the end of high school, I exited it and I told myself, no, I'm not doing art. There's no way. It's stupid. Like, I'm not going to make money. I have nothing for myself. But I knew I always wanted to do art. So at the back of my head, I still kind of hoped for it. I hoped for some kind of sign. And I remember in high school, we had this thing called top arts. It's this. So I studied this subject called studio arts, which is like a very fine art subject. And am I going too long?
No, it's good. It's good because a lot of people are interested actually how to choose the education and what is it like. Why do you actually choose stuff?
Yeah. Okay. Because I think this is relevant to the question of how I got into it.
Yeah, but I mean, actually, I got recently like a lot of questions from the community as well, like how to choose art school and what is more important to study online or like classic brick school.
Yeah.
So
okay.
maybe you can also share like what is your opinion, like from your experience, like what is maybe good on each and what you learn and.
So in this art, it's this kind of specialist art program called Top Arts, and if your work is successful enough, or if they see potential in your work, they select your folio and your work, and they out of like you're basically one of the top students of that subject in the state. And I was lucky enough to be chosen for one of them, and for me that kind of gave me hope. I know I was exiting high school and I got accepted into my physiotherapy course, but it gave me this hope because it meant that somebody saw value in my work, that somebody so high up saw that there was potential in my work. Because if you got into top arts, you basically had something going for you. So then, because of that, I kept drawing as much as I could. In my spare time, I would study hard because physiotherapy was a demanding course. And at home, as soon as I get home, I would draw constantly. And then in that year, my work started to get noticed a bit. My style developed a lot more because I kept practicing, and I started getting featured in DeviantArt. I started getting noticed on Tumblr, and then I started an Instagram page, and that started to slowly grow. And then a year passed, and before I knew it, I had this thing going. Something was growing, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to feel about it because my mind was so set on doing physiotherapy and working towards that trajectory of getting a career, and just, But my heart all of a sudden had this hope, like, oh, this could be something. So
how did you approach the learning, when you had to study, fundamentals, light and materials, because it can be overwhelming when you're just starting out and you want to get better and it takes time.
I never actually took classes. A lot of what I learned was through observation. So basically everything I know is just through observing the real world, I guess. So the anatomy, facial structures, features, it was all just looking at people and looking at my hands and my face and the way light works and falls, like this and that. So that's why my work doesn't have it's not very realistic. It's more surreal, abstract, with a lot of manga and anime influences because I grew up with that. But I tried to do studies a lot. I try to get image references and study of those and get a bit of understanding of light and anatomy, because light and anatomy and color are probably the hardest things to do.
Yeah, and it's so complex and just so many things. But did you also take pictures of yourself or you were like a mirror and then drawing, or how did you do it?
I hate drawing myself.
But it's the closest reference what we have when we are drawing,
Yeah, I know, but my hands, yeah, but maybe not my face because I hate looking at my face.
It's like,
It's like
and,
no,
and
please no.
do you have maybe some books you liked or some other online resources you like to look at because just to study maybe other artists and see how they are simplifying or
Not any books, and I never. There never really was resources when I was like learning how to draw and paint. But now there's so many on YouTube. It's incredible. But I never had to. I never thought about it. I guess I just kept just drawing as I did and just practicing and practicing. And like there was other artists I'd look up to, so I would try to emulate them, and I try to like just take this and try that and experiment this, and things slowly fell into place, and I just kept trying to refine it, and I just kept practicing, I guess.
And do you have some tips maybe about, like Instagram or DeviantArt, like what are the things maybe to do and not to do when someone try to build their own community, like be present there and these kind of things, like, yeah, like consistency and the same look? Or...
Yeah. One of the biggest things, I realized that the growth came a lot more on social media with consistency and with actual community engagement. So it's bad now, but when I first started on DeviantArt,
So encouraging.
Oh, it's so bad. When I first started on Instagram on DeviantArt, I was always commenting people's photos. I was like making friends. I had so many friends on DeviantArt. Oh, now I miss them. I'd talk to these people for ages. I would talk to them, send these long messages, and we go back and forth, kind of like pen pals. So I would really get involved in the community, get to know people and talk to people, and I genuinely became like part of a family there. And the more you become engaged with the people who are there, because there are people there who help you, those are people who will critique you and make you better. So those are people who are important to become friends with. So being involved in those social media platforms and being consistent, constantly uploading and asking for critiques and challenging yourself, that's one way that I found myself starting out with DeviantArt especially. And as my DeviantArt grew, I started opening Instagram and Tumblr, and the same thing, being involved and just talking to people, commenting, giving positive feedback, critiques, because people do the same for you. People want to help, and people want to be helped.
Definitely.
So it's just about consistency and being involved.
Yeah, good. Yeah, because also I think it's a really good idea to ask questions if you are developing a story or you want the opinion about angle or colors, like what people like, and
Yeah.
so that can help the engagement, definitely. And so how do you manage your time now? Because you work with so many different projects, and so how do you plan your week or a month, or how does your normal day look like?
I try to have a plan, but it doesn't really work. It's particularly hard right now because I'm not actually at home. I'm overseas studying abroad, but usually, I don't even know.
So you take it how it comes every day?
Kind of. Well, I always have a list of things I need to do urgently, so deadlines, and I always try to get them done. I try to get them done well in advance. That's the key word. I try.
Good.
Because it's hard because a lot of things come unexpectedly, a lot of things. So I can't, especially when I'm creating stuff, when I'm creating work, I can't plan like a day where I will create something new or create something fun or something cool, because it comes in surges, it comes in waves. Like today I might feel really creative and I might have this brilliant idea and I need to draw it, but I can't because I have work. So there are things that I cannot change, like my actual work and school, and there's time where I can move around and do things. But in those times, it's usually a lot of all-nighters, no sleep, and stress.
Oh, good. But how do you keep, positive and motivated? Because you look like really like a sunny type and really positive person. So how do you motivate yourself?
I think just the idea, well, just thinking about like where I've come, where I'm going, what there
Hmm.
is to come, things to work for. I think that itself is pretty motivating.
Yeah, like
Like,
exciting projects that might come.
yeah, yeah. Like if I just sit back and think, wow, how far have I come? Then
Hmm.
that's pretty like that itself is like, whoa, I, this is really cool. But I also get a lot of emails, messages from fans, and some of them are the most. It just gets you. It makes you realize why. It makes me realize why I do this and why I want to keep going because it makes it's the reason why I do art to
Yeah,
connect with people,
definitely. Yeah, and
inspire
just
people.
help others and inspire others.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's super nice. And so, what is your main inspiration? Do you have like some go-to things like walks in nature, or that everyone is always inspired where like these stories or ideas come from?
A lot of my work is driven by my current state. So how I feel, how a mood or a memory or an experience. So I can sketch just for fun and just freely and just do sketches. But when I create a work that I'm really really passionate about, it's usually driven by like my how I feel at the time. So sometimes there are things that happen in my life that everyone experiences, like losing a friend, you know, heartbreak, that kind of stuff. I think those kind of emotions everybody can relate to, but they're so powerful, and it's kind of a creative outlet for me. So a lot of my work is driven just purely by that, and it can be instigated by something like music. I can listen to a song and there's a certain lyric that clicks in my head and makes me feel a certain way, and it just drives me to create this idea. It can be this color. It can be a color I see, a color palette, a color combo, and it has a feeling associated to it that makes me think of something. It sounds weird,
No,
but
it makes totally
it
sense.
makes more sense in my head.
But yeah, but if you see some color you want to put on the paper, definitely, and then you start creating from there.
But it always has to be driven by a feeling because I'm creating most of my work is portraiture. It's faces. There's an expression that I try to capture that makes you feel and think away, and it has to be the right like everything. I don't know.
And so, how do you work with like bigger projects when you like recently worked on? Like, do you have like certain theme, or like you want to create a cast of characters, or how does it work for in a like more professional environment and less on personal artworks?
So for like exhibitions,
Yeah, for example, exhibitions, or I think your works were now recently in a magazine, right? As well.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I recently did an exhibition for Haven Gallery in New York. So it was my first international exhibition, which is super exciting. It was a themed exhibition, so the theme was Heart's Blood, and it was inspired by Oscar Wilde's Nightingale of the Rose, which itself is quite a dark theme. It's a dark story, and so because it's themed, I still have to have that same approach. I have to feel a certain way to connect with it. Otherwise, it doesn't feel right, and I'm just painting for illustration, which is something that I just don't connect with. So for that, the theme was I strip it back. So the general theme of the exhibition is about pain and heartbreak and unrequited love. So I've never been to such an extreme where in that story I'm like so in love where I have to like do something so dark. But everyone can relate to that feeling of heartbreak, of pain, of falling in love with someone that doesn't love you back, and how difficult it is. So holding on to that kind of feeling, I kind of go through sketches and different color palettes and experiment with what colors work and that kind of capture that feeling, and different expressions, different poses, different combinations and compositions. And so I have so many sketches and like layouts and color palettes and tests. And eventually when I feel it, like the drawing come together, the composition, then I go with that. If that answers your question.
Yeah. It makes sense, yeah, because like we kind of work certain ways sometimes when you work on your personal projects, when there is no team attached. So definitely it's like different sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess when it comes to like a theme or project, it's about for me extracting a certain part about what the project is meant to be about and connecting with it as close as I can.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And do you have something you wish you knew before you started this whole artistic career? You know, some like advice to young self?
I think my biggest advice, I realized this recently, it's to not be so afraid of what's to come in the future, to kind of embrace things as they go. So, 3 years ago, I would not imagine myself to be here right now. But I've always been so scared of doing this or trying that or opening up the idea, being open-minded to trying something different, something new, because I was scared of the consequences that would follow. I was scared of what people would think, what would happen. For example, even practically, like I never wanted to try oil painting or acrylics because they're scary and I probably suck at it. And then being in San Diego, I'm taking an oil painting class and I'm obsessed. I love it. Like I don't know what it is. I'm in love with it, and I wish I'd done it earlier. So I think just being open-minded and not being so afraid of the future, of challenging yourself.
Yeah.
That's probably my best advice.
Definitely, yeah, because sometimes we get like different advices, as you mentioned, like from the
Yeah,
counselor, and it's like, no, don't do this and do that.
yeah. But
Definitely.
even when it comes to like social media, like being afraid to put your work out there and be critiqued and be judged, being afraid to expose yourself, it's scary because you don't know what people are going to say. It's in the future. You don't know where it's going to go. But unless you do it and you try it, you're never going to know.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one, yeah. And
Yeah.
how do you think about new projects, you know, when you have to say no sometimes to projects because you don't have time or other reasons? What is your like self-talk, you know, deciding for or not to go for a project?
I don't actually take on many commercial or commission projects or outside work because I work in a magazine. I've got my full-time studies, and I've got to do my own art, thing. So I don't really take. I really want to, but I can't only because of my studies. So I actually don't do outside work.
And maybe you can mention for some people in the community or audience, if they don't know what you do in the magazine, if you can share what are your responsibilities and how does it look like?
So I work at Beautiful Bizarre magazine as the designer there, and I've been working there for about 2 or 3 years now, and yeah, I don't know. It's a contemporary art magazine. We're just going through a brand new revamp stage, so we're redesigning the whole issue, which is really exciting. It's coming out next year, but it's also partly the reason why I'm so tired and stressed out right now because it's very intense.
And you do graphic design there, layout, or actually the character design, or everything?
It's an art magazine, so it features artists. So I don't actually do illustration in it. I just do layouts. I do the design. I design basically everything that's graphic related to the magazine.
And how did you get to this job? Or was it you applied, or they found you? Or how does this work when you already, because you're still studying, right? And so people are wondering sometimes, okay, how do I find new paid projects or the first ones?
It actually it came about because of Instagram actually.
Yeah.
So this magazine at the time it's still huge. That was a really big art magazine, and they featured my work on the Instagram page about a couple of times, and I was flabbergasted. I was shocked, and I was like, "Whoa, this is so cool!" So I thought it was amazing. And then one day I got an email from them, and they invited me to do an exhibition with them, a group exhibition, and I was I was so over the moon. And they asked me if I wanted to be in an exhibition because they liked my work and they liked the aesthetic that fit in with their magazine and their vision. And of course I said yes. It was going to be my first curated exhibition. I had to do it. And because of that, I got into contact with Daniela, the founder of the magazine. And we started talking a bit, and I discovered it was an Australian-based magazine. We talked about the motivation behind it and why the magazine existed. And I loved it. I loved the passion behind it. I loved the initiative, the story. And I offered because I was genuinely, I really wanted this magazine to kick off. I really wanted them to do something, to be huge. So I offered if they ever needed anything, any needed help, I was always happy to be there and help them. And a few weeks later, Daniela asked me to help with this tiny little thing. And then I did it really well. And then she asked me to come on board and be an assistant and help her out with some small things. And then I became more involved. I did more tasks. I took on more work. And I think a year in, the designer at the time had to leave the magazine because of her job. So there was no longer a designer, and there was panic. We had no designer, and then
you're like, I'm here.
I'm here. I do study graphic design kinda. I do have a background, so I volunteered, and now I'm the designer.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, but that's really interesting story, like to offer a help at the beginning, obviously, because you are interested and passionate about the project. So yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Nice. And how do you do networking otherwise? You know, you mentioned like social media. Do you go also for conventions and these kind of things, you know, or what would you advise young starting artists, you know, like to build a network?
Sadly, I'm not the best person to ask for networking advice because I don't do enough. I don't do enough. I don't do conventions, and it's not because I don't want to. I've always wanted to. It's just I don't know where to go or where to look. So I always hear about conventions after they're finished, and I'm always going, oh, why didn't I go to that? So I wish I went to conventions. I just don't. I'm not involved because I don't know about them, so I never get to go. I don't know about art events or artist talks or any kind of art related events or happenings in where I'm from, just because I don't know where to look. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to get involved into that, and I can't really go to events or physical happenings outside of my town because I can't afford to go there or anything. So I'm not the best person to ask for networking.
So maybe we can do some list of events so people can actually check out what is in their area.
Yeah, I've tried. I've always wanted to get more involved in the community and be more and do more networking and meet people, but I've just never known how to. But
you look like a really social person, you know.
But yeah, but I just don't know where to look. I don't know where to go.
I will send you the list.
Oh, please do.
Good.
But now I mean, but it might also because in where I'm from, the art scene isn't as big. Being in San Diego, being in California, I'm realizing that there is so many opportunities. There's so many events. There's so many people that you can talk to who are interested in art. I went to, like, for example, in Australia, there's not, well, I just don't know, but where I'm from, I don't think there's a lot of galleries. I think there's a few, and I'm not in the loop. But I went to New York recently, and I went to one gallery, one exhibition, and it was the most incredible experience ever. I went there, and I didn't know anyone for my boss, and I was just talking to people, I was talking to artists. And this one artist who was exhibiting, she introduced me to this other artist, who introduced me to this other artist, who introduced me to this gallery director, who introduced me to this videographer. And it was so cool. I was meeting people, and I became friends with them. We became friends on Instagram. So I guess that was networking.
I think so.
Yeah, but that was like one of my first times actually getting in there. Which was like 2 months ago.
Yeah, but that sounds like really good experience because then you can meet them in person and see their art and everything.
Yeah, for sure. I want to do more of it. I love it. It's fun.
Definitely. So yeah, so more events. We will list them also for everyone so people can check it out.
Please do.
And did you also have something like a more difficult time of your career, something you learned from maybe, or like when you felt unmotivated, or even like when you didn't draw or you didn't go to period like that?
Um, there's been two very difficult times. The first was the start of the art career. The first was the decision to actually chase it, to do it. That was a very scary time, and but I'm happy I did because in the end it was a good decision.
Yeah.
But recently, just actually very recently, just a few months ago, um, I I struggled a bit with art. I struggled a bit with this whole thing. I think it's kind of scary to admit it, but I think I got cold feet for the first time, and I was actually really scared of what I was doing because I went traveling a lot recently, and because of that, I found it really hard to have time to draw and get into it. But when I got back, because I was on holiday for so long, it was hard to get into drawing again. I didn't feel the drive that I felt to draw. I didn't want to draw, and I hate admitting that. I just didn't want to draw. I just wanted to relax and have fun and just enjoy my life. But it made me really upset at myself because all of a sudden it was like this giant art block that took over, and it was worse than art block because it wasn't that I couldn't draw. It was just that I didn't want to draw, and it made me think that maybe I didn't have the guts to do this whole career. Maybe I didn't have the guts to be doing this, even though I've come this far. I thought maybe I just wasn't the person for it. And it put me in a bit of a dark place. I wasn't for the past few weeks. I haven't been able to draw, and I've just been scared to draw because I just don't know what I'm doing. And yeah, that was probably one of the hardest times. But now,
What helped you to get back to the drive and everything?
um, I don't think it was. I think it was a lot about just about where I am in this place, like in life, like just this certain time, because I'm on exchange and I'm alone, and it made me think a lot. And then when I went to New York, it made me realize why I love that again. Like why, like after being in that exhibition, after meeting those people, after being in New York, it felt like I remembered why I loved it. I remember why I wanted to work so hard, why I spent so many sleepless nights painting until like 6 in the morning. I remembered why I loved it, and that's what I mean. Like with the idea that I can't be afraid, that you shouldn't be afraid of what's to come, the future. Yes, I might have cold feet. Yes, I might not be the person for it. Yes, I might not be able to make anything of this, but I love it, and I live for it. It's what I need to do it, and it just kind of remembering why I do it in the first place helps me get into it again.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And do you have some like favorite tools you work with now you cannot live without, or it doesn't matter for you, like you want to do every day like with this brand or this brush or
Um, I I have supplies that I still use from like the very first day I painted. So I have favorite brushes. I have a favorite palette. So I always use the same. I don't know where it is now. I actually got a much more expensive and better palette, but I haven't touched it. But I've been using this since like day one.
Cool.
It's this palette that I bought way long ago, and it's lasted me forever.
That's Vincent
Only
Newton
because
or
yeah, Winsor Newton's, yeah, it's the 45 pound set. Um, I think I'm very attached to things, so I can't.
like
I
emotional
can't.
value with this thing.
Yeah, emotional value. I can't part with it. Even though I have a much better palette, I can't bear to use it because I need to use this one. And I have brushes that I've had for 2 or 3 years that are only like $2, and I still use them because they're just favorite brushes.
Yeah, definitely. And do you listen maybe to podcasts or other things, when you are working, or other things to learn from, like a kind of combination of activities during the day, or it's mostly just music?
Music. I have to have music.
So what is the favorite music?
There's no specific type of music. It always changes. Sometimes I'd be listening. I remember one of the pieces that inspired my work was Beyonce. It was a song XO, and it was something about it that this feeling. And I just had to draw it. Excuse me. And then one time I was listening to Porter Robinson, which is an EDM genre, like hard beats, and that inspired me to create another painting. And then I was listening to Jan Tiersen, which is piano and melodic music, and then it made me do another painting. So the music can vary from anything, but there's always, like I said, that it's driven by a feeling, and it's usually spurred on by a song or something I see. Yeah, there.
Oh, that's super cool. And do you have maybe even like a favorite quote you live by? Something you would put on top of the sketchbook?
Well, I have my little motto, I guess. Just be right back chasing dreams. But my favorite quote ever is we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing.
That makes sense.
It's not related to art. It's just something I love.
Yeah, definitely, because we should still enjoy everything what we do, and if we stop enjoying, then we are like, oh.
Yeah, that's my favorite quote.
Definitely. I mean, that's really good. And if you're applying it to your characters, when you mentioned like emotions and these kind of things, what would you maybe advise to young artists when they are starting out and, they want to design characters with emotions? And do you have like some certain process when you are designing? Like, do you always follow the same steps, or do you create differently, like I do sketch, then I design, I don't know, line work, and then the watercolors, or do you work differently?
It changes because sometimes if I have a clear idea in my head, like a very specific piece I want to create, and I know exactly how the composition is and the expression, the feeling, the colors, then I will go ahead and create a very planned process. I will do the sketch, I'll do the line work, I'll do sketches on the side, I'll map out the colors and everything. So there's that, which is a very methodical and technical approach. But some of my favorite approaches is when I literally just have 2 lines on the page and I just paint freely. And sometimes when I do that kind of approach, I've created my favorite works. So being loose, being spontaneous. So I don't think that there's one necessarily right way to do it. I think that if you're starting out as a young artist, you should be open-minded to different approaches. Don't narrow yourself down to one specific approach, and you have to stay that way. You shouldn't. I think you should experiment with different approaches so that you can kind of get to know. You can get a feel of what works for you, because some people prefer a very methodical approach and it's better for them, and they're used to that. But if you try a looser, open approach of just letting colors go, painting how you feel, just letting it go wild, you might fall in love with that, and you might realize that, oh my God, you're actually better at this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I first started, I used to do digital art, so it was very precise. I painted very specifically and cleanly. I was so, like, I had to make this exact color. This had to be so blended, no lines. But then I tried watercolor, and I was obsessed with the way it was so spontaneous and how
all over the place.
Like you couldn't predict where it was gonna go, and I fell in love with it. And now I can't stop doing watercolor. So I think it's good to be open-minded if you're new, if you're starting out, to try new things, to challenge yourself, to be open, to just do something that you don't expect. And you never know. You might be the master at it before you know it.
Yeah, like you said, like oils, right? But do you still like watercolors better, or?
Oh, I love watercolor.
Yeah,
I can never get over watercolor.
So that's your thing.
Yeah.
Definitely. I really like the patterns what you can achieve with the watercolors, because you can never do it with the digital, and it's just so different.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the future. And I would like to know, where would you see yourself maybe in like 5 to 10 years? What would be like your dream scenario? Or, like you cannot fail and everything is like exactly how you want. Do you have something in mind already?
Yes.
Good.
I've dreamt about this. Okay, so I would love in 5 years' time to be in an apartment in New York
Good.
with with my own little studio on the side. I would love to be in New York, working as a fine artist. So being an exhibiting artist, creating my own paintings and exhibiting all across the world. Okay, maybe not 5 years time, maybe like 50 years time. Because that's
Why
very
not? It can be
unrealistic.
5 years.
I think I'll be a lot more than that. But I want to be exhibiting all across the world. I want to be doing workshops. I want to be teaching people. I want to be mentoring or doing classes or working even in a school to teach artists and give them a sense of direction, because I wish I had some kind of help when I was starting out, growing up. Like, I think it really helps to have someone there not guide you, but give you a pat on the back and tell you it's okay, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I'd want to do that. I'd want to teach. I want to help people. I want to help people starting out. But I also want to do YouTube. I want to do tutorials. I want to teach people.
That's really good.
Yeah,
I'm really
that's what I
looking
love
for.
to be.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Like more YouTube videos and like you can share all your experiences and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I heard this, the kind of how do you say it, like exercise where you write down like everything, like to last detail you want to achieve, like you can even describe a day in those 5 years or 10 years, like what do you have for breakfast, what do you wear, where you are sitting, and then it can be in the back of your brain, because you are getting closer to your goals because you want more, what you like, okay, this is what I want to achieve.
I should do that.
So that might be a nice exercise, but you already kind of know already a lot what you want to achieve.
Well, it's just something that it's more things that I would love to do. I'd love to be able to do it.
Yeah.
I think so.
Sure. And my last question would be about far, far future, and I would like to know, what would you like to be remembered for in like 100 years or more?
I don't know. I've never thought about that. That's a scary one to think about. I would like to be remembered for being able to inspire and help someone out there. That's it, I guess.
That's really nice, definitely. And before we say goodbye, maybe you can share last piece of advice or a key takeaway, and then we will slowly finish.
I think my biggest advice would always be to be open-minded, to challenge yourself, to constantly be open to new things, to growth, to developing yourself, because there is always someone better than you. That's kind of dark.
Yeah, that's scary, but it's true.
Pessimistic optimism.
But there is always someone good or better than you, and also worse than you. So yeah, you can always think about that as well if you feel unmotivated. But if you want to progress, you think about the other ones.
Yeah.
Definitely. And so much thank you again for being here and just taking time for inspiring other people.
That's okay.
So yeah, thanks again, and thank you everyone for joining, and see you in the next episode. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and let me know in comments. Also, please subscribe to my channel for more videos, because I post new interview every single workday. You can also find the resources mentioned in this episode at artsideoflife.com. Just type a guest name in the search bar. There is also a little freebie waiting for you, so go check it out. If you want to listen to the interviews on the go, make sure to check out the podcast episodes at artsideoflife.com/podcast. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and don't forget to inspire each other. I will see you guys in the next episode.